Hello and welcome back to my channel. In this video, we'll be reviewing tips for the removal and replacement of the camshaft position sensors on this 2024 Ford Escape with the 1.5 liter engine. If you find my tips to be helpful, please like, subscribe, and comment. Now let's get started. The camshaft position sensors are located in the center of your screen, right near the tip of my red pointer. And I'll point them out. So there are two camshafts on this vehicle, and therefore you have two camshaft sensors. This sensor right here is the intake sensor, and you know that is the intake sensor because it's located closest to the air intake manifold. This sensor right here is the exhaust sensor because it's located nearest to the exhaust manifold, which is located on the back of the engine. Okay, so that's an easy way to remember which sensor is which. These sensors are interchangeable. For demonstration purposes, I will be removing the exhaust sensor and replacing it, and we're going to talk about it a little bit of troubleshooting steps, and wrap this video up, okay? Some of the symptoms associated with a faulty sensor include rough idle, delayed throttle response, misfire, stalling, increased fuel consumption, poor acceleration, and a check engine light with trouble codes P0340 through P0344. You might ask, what does this part do? This tells the ECU when to add fuel, air, or spark during the compression cycle so that the engine runs extremely smooth. And so most new vehicles nowadays have these, okay? And it's a great improvement. It's one of the reasons why we get such high gas mileage. Let's talk about our supply list. Our supply list includes a 15mm socket, right? And so that's going to be used to remove the sensor itself. And then you have a 10mm socket, and that's what's used to remove the bracket holding this hose on back here, okay? And you'll need ratchets, of course. And you may need a camshaft position sensor if needed. And I want to tell you that if you are going to replace these, I highly recommend that you replace them in pairs, because if one goes out, the other one's going to go out. There is a pipe connects right here. There's a horseshoe, what I call a horseshoe connector, a reddish connector. There's wings on either side. You need to pull these wings outward slightly and then remove the horseshoe. Okay, but you're gonna have to put your hand here because this could fly off and down and under the engine. Okay, so just like that. I know I probably made it look easy, but the point is, be very careful. Push in on this piece back here, push the connection that way and pull it out, just like that. Next, I'm gonna bring a camera around the other side and just show you that bolt that connects this piece to the hose. This hose had to be removed so that the hose could be pulled over and out of the way. Hope you guys can see that. Moving back into the position that I was in. So now we have access or clearance. Next thing I'm gonna do is remove the electrical connector, slide the white mechanism to the rear, and then I'm going to squeeze it and pull it off. And I'm gonna remove the bolt that's holding the sensor in, okay? For that, I just wanna mention that I used a 10mm socket to remove the bolt holding this hose in place, okay? Sorry, I got that out of order. Now we can pull it straight up on this exhaust sensor and check it out. And there you have it. So let's quickly talk about this sensor here. And so just looking at it, expecting it from the top, you'll see that the 3 pins, connector pins, are nice and straight. Coming down from the top, you'll see the area above the O-ring is dry. There's no oil. That tells you that the O-ring is working properly. In this case, I typically wouldn't replace an O-ring. I just replace the whole item. But in this case, because these are kind of expensive, I would look to replace the O-ring. If you were having oil leakage in and around this area back here, I would just attempt to replace the O-ring. As long as this wasn't throwing a code, but you had oil leaks in that area, I would look to replace the O-ring only, okay? So what you want to see here is a light coat of oil, clear oil. You want to be able to clearly see the bottom of the sensor. So let's dive into that a little bit. If you get a trouble code for this sensor, before replacing the sensor, the first thing you should do is check the condition of your oil. I cannot stress that enough. If you have extremely dirty oil could coat the outside of this sensor and prevent the signals from being transmitted back and forth from the camshaft to this sensor, okay? And this is a big trouble spot. People neglect their oil and then they go to an auto shop and they say, well, we're gonna have to troubleshoot it. We don't know why. And you're like, okay, there's only 80,000 miles on the vehicle, and they're talking about, well, we need to check the timing. The timing's out of sync, and they're running down the list of possibilities of things that could go wrong. Before you take that car to the mechanic or attempt to fix it yourself, change the oil. Once you change the oil, disconnect the negative battery cable for 2 minutes, reinstall the cable, and then run the vehicle if needed for about 20 miles. If that light does not come on after 20 miles, then you know it was the dirty oil that was preventing the signal from being transferred back and forth to the engine's computer. And basically, don't do that again, okay? These things are extremely durable, but they will go out after a period of time because there's a magnet in here, right? And so under high heat temperature and pressure, this magnet will slowly start to degrade over time. And I can't pin down an exact mileage, but it will degrade over time, and you'll start experiencing rough idling to a point where it throws a check engine light. You might get 80,000 miles, you might get 120,000 miles, you could get 200,000 miles off the original sensors. But really, it really boils down to how well you maintain your oil. Because if you're letting your oil maintenance lapse, what's happening is over time, the sensor will be trying to struggle. The magnet will try to struggle to find the signal. And that additional pull on the magnet will cause it to degrade faster than if you were to keep up your oil. I hope I explained that in a way that you guys can understand it. I don't think we need to go any further on this. I talked about replacing these in pairs, and I think that's just about it. So let's go ahead and get this reinstalled and move on with this video. So I'm going to first look at the mounting surface, and I see that it's perfectly clean. O-ring is fine, so I'm just gonna push it down. So I'm gonna push it straight down because I don't want to hang up the O-ring on the side. There you go. Nice tight seal. So then I'm gonna grab the screw. Get it started by hand. Long socket comes in really handy here because you can really tighten it down by hand most of the way. Okay, notice I'm holding on to this socket for dear life because I do not want to drop it. So I'm going to put maybe 10 pounds of pressure on here. That's it. It's just snug. That's all it needs to be. All right. Basically, I'm working up from the engine, okay? So I got the screw on here. Next, I'm gonna go ahead and make that electrical connector connection. As always, I'm gonna look at my electrical pins, look at the rubber gasket, make sure that gasket isn't deformed. It's kind of hard to see, giving me a hard time here, but I always win. There you go, gasket looks great. I'm gonna go ahead, slide the connector on. Man, that's a short wire. Listen for the click, click, there you go. Tug on it back and forth, then lock it in place. There you go. So now we're done with the camshaft sensor itself. Now what we're trying to do is just reinstall all the other parts that we had to take off. I'm gonna reinstall this screw right here. After I do that, I'll come back here and finish up with you guys. All right, I'm back. Just want to say I spent some time getting this flex hose connected to this right here. So always want to check underneath with your hand to make sure that you have a nice even seal all the way around. A lot of people make a mistake there. Coming to the finish line. Going to reconnect some of these hoses. So this hose right here, push it on. Now you have the what I call the horseshoe bracket. Tug on it back and forth. There you go. Slide that on. Looks good. There's a little connector back here that slides on top of the screw, straight down. And there you have it. Well, folks, that wraps up the removal and replacement of the camshaft position sensors on this 2024 Ford Escape with the 1.5 liter engine. I hope you found my tips to be helpful. Please like and subscribe. And until next time, drive defensively.